John, that's a perfectly shaped head.
Welcome back to Two in the Hand, folks. This is the one you've all been waiting for. It is The Miz. Do spirit fingers, right? Spirit fingers. Missing head, motherfuckers. If you don't know, now you know. Left to right, Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, and Captain America.
My cat, I had Barbara, Upland Stand, Northern area.
My Little Pony.
My Little Pony. Good photo of a snipe.
It's after the pinch up. Throw them down.
John wins the competition. Best jack snipe of the day.
It's not pin sharp. It's definitely not pin sharp.
Some would say that's a gripper.
Hold on, wait. I'll just try and get in focus. Oh, actually, it is focus. Toss there. Do you like your oak soggy? There, your yolk soggy.
Fond of soggy yolk, Peter.
Enjoy that, John. What are you thinking? Oh, yellowbrow. Yeah.
Epic banter with Jez and Pete.
And they have white on the back of the tent's shoulders. We warmed up by the fire, then we let it go. There was no bird watchers in the pubs. No. We told them in the pubs, no.
Where was this?
Sullivan's on Tuesday night. I met a farmer, Sean Leary. Huh? Yeah,
Was a blackbird with white on the back of the head?
yeah.
That could have been a blackbird with white in the back of its head.
Oh, that's right.
It's always a chance.
White, brown, black.
It could have been a
radio.
storm petrel and it had it upside down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a chuff.
Less white.
Along here,
Yeah. Oh,
just after the beach, there's
Oh,
some, on the left hand side, there's some white houses with a bit of a wood there.
Yeah.
And you can view it from the road.
Okay.
yeah, I thought I had a lesser trout this morning at the bottom of the, what's that called?
The barley cove.
Barley Cove.
Current affairs.
There's a citrine wag attack,
No way.
so I still need that. My Irish list. And John.
John. God, that's a long staying bird, isn't it?
You know, Peter, as well.
down to the end of the road and take a left. Go out by the Great Northern Road.
Look what he has. He's in a panic. He has something. There's something happening.
Brian, this is TV Gold.
Dan, I can hear you there. Yeah, go on, yeah. What are you saying?
Drive down and park, don't park on the road, whatever you do, just make sure you're off the road, and you'll see me at the plantation at the top, okay?
Yeah.
Now, I need help with this one, yes?
Fuck, okay, right, thanks, Dan, okay.
No, hold on a second.
Okay,
No.
okay. And just me, myself, or what?
Yes, just yourself, because I can't have anyone more than 2 people at a time here.
Okay, thank you, right, okay.
Okay.
Dennis, look, Dan has something in Three Castles, but he only wants me to go up. He says he can only take
put a
one
crow
person
on
at a
something
time.
else, I don't know
He
what
has
it
something
is.
big. He basically said
possibly a
he
yank.
only wants me to go up and to sort out
time.
access after, but he has something big in Three Castles.
So just get back down.
Probably a yank.
I better get a bit of scenic B-roll as we drive past some lovely scenery out the window.
Are we still on the right road, Peter?
Yeah, no, keep going. Yeah, this is the Three Castles Head.
That's the plantation up there.
Just keep going. Don't crash wherever you do. Don't want to belt the kingfisher all over again.
And
Ro-
he says park sensibly. So
Anywhere there will be fine.
this is the Three Castles.
Just in you go there. It's fine.
Stop, Brian, just get out.
I think we're allowed up if you know
Go,
what I mean,
go,
up
go.
the lane. Yeah.
And run up and run back. Is Brian going in? Brian is wrecked. He's never ran as far in his life. But there's no getting on the board yet. But I think Brian's at the getting it alright. I think he's pointing to Dan, is he? Not bad.
Unbelievable. Black Phone Walker on the list.
Okay, folks, as I said just before you got to see our quick Les Mis vlog, you're all very, very welcome back to another episode of Two in the Hand. Now, the original plan was to turn this into a 20 to 30 minute vlog, similar to our storm birding vlog, which chronicled our trip to the Bridges of Ross. But unfortunately, there's one or two issues. Peter did what he usually does, which is work like a Trojan, and he got all the video and recorded everything that he needed to record it to. But Brian and I were a little bit lazy and we neglected our share of the workload. I think that's fair to say, Peter, isn't it?
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that.
Well, okay. Hold on.
We were much too busy looking at nothing in all those bushes.
Very true. Like
Brian was too busy looking at his phone for new news rather than videoing.
Yeah, it's very true. I would hasten to point out that I don't think there's one actual clip that Brian and I videoed in that entire 10 minutes. And so big props to Peter for putting the effort in. He is the one who cares and is putting the effort in, folks. Brian and I are taking it much too nonchalantly, and we will rectify that going forward, won't we, McCluskey?
Yes.
There you go. Okay, so some context. The Les Mis trip is something that we do every year, okay? So you all know at this stage that we're either from Monaghan or Louth. And what we do in October of every year is that we travel down to the very, very most southern point of County Cork and most southern point of Ireland. And we go to a place called Mizen Head. And we do that hoping to find rare birds, okay? We also hope that we're positioned well in case something rare drops down south that we can go on Twitch. But the primary aim of our annual trip is to go and find rare birds on Mizen Head. We were very, very lucky this year that this trip just fell between lockdowns, essentially. In fact, a lockdown was issued when we were down on Mizen Head. Like 2 or 3 days after we got there, there was a lockdown issued, and basically that meant that we had to pretty much cut our collective trip short. We only got staying for, I think, a grand total of 7 days, and we had scheduled about a 10 to 12-day trip in total. I think, Brian, you were going to stay down there for longer with Jer, weren't you?
Yeah, we were going to stay for nearly 2 weeks.
Yeah, but we didn't really get to do that, unfortunately. But so that's a bit of background, a bit of context for you. You've seen some of them, or you've seen the clips and the vlog that have alluded to some of the more memorable moments of the trip. But what we're going to do in the remainder of this episode is kind of just talk you through what went on our annual birding trip to Les Mis, okay? So who wants to start the story? Who wants to tell it?
Not me, no, Peter, on you go.
Peter's penis wants to start the story, is that? If you give it a microphone, if it wants to talk, let it at it, Peter.
Well, what are we talking about first?
Okay, right, I'll set the scene, all right?
Yeah.
So where the last episode pretty much stops or drops off is regarding the Northern Harrier, or the Marsh Hawk, and that is where Brian and I basically went the day after being on Inishboffin, seeing the upland sandpiper. We came home to Monaghan from Inishboffin, and then we went all the way back down to Cork the next day to try and hook up with the Marsh Hawk. We got that bird and we went home, okay? And the next day, we went back to Cork to start our Les Mis trip. Now, there may have been a lack of hindsight or logical thought there, but that's what happened. And Brian, you're going to continue to tell the story. Sha-la-la-la.
Yeah, so we went down the next morning. Or no, we went down the next evening or something.
I think it was evening.
Yeah, we went all down the next evening, and then we arrived on Mizen about 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. And straight to bed, and then up bright and early the next morning for our day's birding.
Hold on a second. This is where, you see, you're leaving out important details, McCluskey.
Like what?
So, as many of our viewership is probably aware, McCluskey has recently become a man, all right? We're giving him more responsibility in the group. We're expecting him to step up and really, really embrace the challenge that's before him. He got his driving test, so as I said, new independent man, right? This was Brian's chance to book the accommodation, all right? He booked us a holiday home. Everything sounded fantastic.
I booked us a villa.
A villa, yeah. A villa. Everything sounded fantastic in Monaghan. It was ridiculously cheap. We all had luxurious, spacious, ensuite accommodation. Well, when we got there were 2 bedrooms, one with a double bed and the other with 4 bunk beds. Murray. Bloodhound Murray.
Much better in the pictures.
The Bloodhound Murray got out of that car. He was more like a greyhound that day. He was in the house and up the stairs before I got my flipping passenger door closed, right? Yeah. And he nabbed the double bed.
He sniffed out the only clean bed in the house.
Yeah. So then myself, Brian, and Peter were sleeping the grand total of 6 foot from each other for about a week, okay? And I'm just going to preface that by stating categorically that I am not top bunk material, all right? So that was my line in the sand straight away. I was like, no way, right? So I got one bunk bed, and basically Peter and Brian were in the other one. To say that it was cramped and a little bit uncomfortable for the first night when we're all really pissed off at Brian is not an overstatement. Okay?
But in fairness, it got a little bit more entertaining when you'd be just about to get to sleep and Peter would sit up in the middle of the night. I have an idea for the two in the hand. Like, go to sleep, Peter.
I didn't mind. I did not mind. I really did not mind the ideas. It was the fucking sing songs at 3 o'clock in the morning that were starting to get me a smidge by day 7. By day 7, after birding all day and going straight to bed to be ready for the next day's birding, the midnight sing songs did grate a smidge. Although I must say, as our Peter, you have a voice like melted caramel, and you and Brian are going to sing us out this week. We've agreed upon it in advance, so that's in the books for the end.
I have a song.
Okay, what's the song?
Time to say goodbye.
Okay, save it to the end. I cannot wait, Peter. So that is the situation with Tusky. We just got down after the Marsh Hawk. You essentially booked us a frickin' tent to stay in. One where we didn't even get our own sleeping bags. That's what happened.
At least Jer was in a lovely, comfy room.
Murray, yeah, he was. Oh, we'll get Murray
he
back.
Loves his comfort, in fairness.
Jer loves his comfort.
He loves his comfort, yeah.
He does indeed. Right, so we all went to bed, most of us together. And the next day, what happened? The first day of the trip, Brian.
Yeah, so we were then up for dawn and out birding. And I'm trying to think, did we have anything, a note that day? I think me and Jer to fly over Lapland bunting at the end garden. But it was really, really quiet. It was... we all knew pretty much straight away that it was going to be yank or nothing.
Yeah.
Like, every garden was dead.
Yeah, that's one of the things, I suppose, people who maybe not used to birding don't realise, but when you go looking for rare birds, if the wind is in the west, you have a chance, but it's always a slim chance of finding an American vagrant. But, it's like winning the lottery trying to find that. So that's the kind of weather we had. The winds have been in the west for a couple of weeks, really, hadn't they?
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we were checking the gardens, and I went the entire week or whatever it was without seeing a chiff chaff. So like usually your chiff chaff is, your standard kind of migrant. Like every couple
chiff chaff, folks. The rest of maybe just Brian didn't, and that might have something to do with his head being in his phone for the first 3 days of the trip.
You didn't see a chiff chaff either.
I'm sure details of that will emerge as we go forward.
Yeah. No, there was very, very few migrants. Like, it was really difficult. Bar the Lapland bunting on the first day, there was nothing. And I think we had Jack Snipe in Lista Griffin again. But later that day, then I got a phone call from Steve Miller, and he was like in a panic. And I think we had split up or something. I think used to went away somewhere, and me and Jerry were in Crew Cave and looking for the Pacific Diver. And Steve was in a panic, and he was like, "Do you have Anthony McGeehan's number?" And I said I didn't. And I think then he said he met Anthony or something on the road, and I was like, "What's the panic or whatever?" And he said he had something big in the garden, and that he was thinking of yank, but he hadn't seen it well or something at that stage, and he wanted another, like, Anthony to help him with the search or whatever. So I was then thinking, like, I hope it's nothing major, So anyway, later that evening, he got put shots out, and it turned out to be Ireland's first Tennessee warbler, which was
mega.
Oh Jesus, just thinking about it. Like, but anyway.
Come here, Brian. What had Steve over on Inishbofin? Because that wouldn't be his normal patch. He kind of
actually, Steve's patch was always mizzen, and he just got sick of mizzen. He was doing a week there every year, and he was seeing very, very little. So he said he'd up and head over to Inishbofin this year instead. And he had unbelievable tallies, like, at the end of it. Like,
fantastic autumn on Inishbofin.
Even to find a first for Ireland, Jesus.
So he put out some photographs, but the photographs were who was it identified the bird, or how did that come
Just
about?
really quickly, during his time on Inishboffin, I believe Steve had upland sand, Tennessee warbler, blue throat, and white thrush. He saw
White thrush.
it was fantastic.
Did you say barred warbler? Barred
Barred
warbler.
warbler,
Found one or two of those.
Yeah, fantastic trips.
Unbelievable, yeah. And then Anthony Anthony found the white thrush.
Yeah.
And then he had a little bunting as well.
Bunting as well, okay.
Was there something else as well? Like, unbelievable. Like, the island just hopped. It seemed to have something. And Eastern yellow wagtail as well.
Eastern yellow wagtail, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, done very, very well. So you were saying, Peter, sorry for cutting across.
I can't remember. What was I saying? No, I was saying that the photographs came out, but not that not everyone was convinced, but the photographs weren't exactly brilliant of the original shots of the bird. So how did it come about that it was?
Well, I think a couple of different people kind of
Josh Jones was one, wasn't he?
Well, I think Anthony identified it when he saw the back of the camera, and then Killian identified it as I can't remember what the story was. Killian definitely had some part in it, and then Josh Jones was the first to mention it in the WhatsApp. So, at least 3 people kind of were involved with the IDE.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it was ID'd, and it's a first for Ireland. I think there've been 2 on Shetland, this autumn. Now they're
the
really
4th
rare.
and 5th for Britain. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really rare bird this side of the Atlantic. There's in North America, there's been an increase in the food that the adults feed the chicks called budworms. So there's been a bit of a population explosion of that and Cape May warbler. So that's probably one of the reasons why there's been an increase, if you like, on this side of the Atlantic.
Mm.
Go on, Brian, you were saying?
Yeah, so just the whole I don't even know what to say after that, because
it was an absolute nightmare situation for us folks. We had driven to the most southerly tip of the island, and basically we get news of an Irish first back up the country and considerably west. We really didn't know what to do at this point. But
that wasn't even really the issue. Like, it was.
Brian, what was the issue?
Peter, do you want to go on?
Well, I suppose as John said, lockdown had started. It was county lockdown, wasn't it?
I believe lockdown had literally just started that evening.
It actually hadn't started when the bird was found.
You're right. It was to start the following day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we were thinking, could we twitch the ferry or something?
I think a lot of people thought, well, let's get this quick. But do you ever see the football game when they say they think it's all over? It is now.
It is now, yeah.
I think some of the lads thought, let's get down there quick before it's all over. We'll just get in and get out as quick as you can. But unfortunately,
if it had been found one day earlier.
Unfortunately, the referee blew the whistle. And that game over. That was it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we got news then that the ferry even wasn't running out to the island at this stage, so that kind of put the kibosh on that one for us, unfortunately.
I think it left a lot of people disappointed, because I think people thought they could have got there and got back, and with little or no harm done.
I think actually the people did get there, and little or no harm done. But yeah, it was a strange one, because it's for any twitchers out there, I suppose, or any birders either, there's this kind of excitement when you get the potential to see a new bird, especially one of this caliber, one that's an Irish first. So obviously, you all want to go and get for it, but just got in the way for us, unfortunately. So we didn't go, especially when we heard that the ferry wasn't running.
It's a bit of a pity, because I think last week the Dutch had a black-polled warbler on Texel, which is an island, and as far as I know, they're in full lockdown, I think, or certainly some sort of lockdown, and Texas would have been off limits, but it was an organised twitch, social distance.
An organised twitch.
Yeah, everybody got on, got it, back off,
and
no harm done. Sure, anyway, I'm not bitter.
You're bitter.
Do you know what I noticed about you, Brian? Now, you're real kind.
The Fringe, was it? Was it the Fringe? We've all noticed the Fringe, Peter. We've all noticed that.
But Peter,
You always come across kind of a happy-go-lucky sort of a dude, but when the news came in of the Tennessee Warbler, for the few days that
You're unbearable.
There was a kind of a bit of a, no, yes, no, no, yeah, no.
Oh, that was a rough few days.
I mean, you were like, we were all up with the binoculars looking for airbirds. You were like that for 3 days, and I realized,
yeah, disaster.
Do you know? To be
honest, no, like it's so true. But like, and I nearly kind of laughed at it when I heard it first. Like, it was years back when I saw. Do you remember the 1995 Twitching show with Evans and Brett Richards and all those lads?
Oh yeah. Do
you remember when they were in Scilly and a chestnut sided warbler was found in Prowl Point? Do you remember that?
In Devon, yeah.
And they couldn't get off the island.
Yeah.
And I think Evans or something said something along the lines of, "This always happens. Something big is found off Scilly, and either everybody leaves, or if you can't get off, everybody walks around with their head down." Oh, that's basically what I did for until the bird left.
Yeah, truthfully, like, we don't want you to make, we don't want to make you feel too guilty, Brian, but you were a nightmare to be around.
I know,
yeah, you were. But you know what? It's funny because, like, I think people have mentioned before, it's like a twitching, and it's like an addiction. And you know, if a rare bird turns up, like,
Twitchers Anonymous.
You have to see it. Like, your hands are shaking, and you just need to get there and see the bird. And you were in desperate form. But as soon as you made the decision, because you did make the decision when the bird was still there, look, I'm not going. I'm going to stay here. You was like a complete change of personality, wasn't he, John?
Peter, I actually, like, before you said that.
So you're saying that I have a problem?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. You know, truth be told, I was going to say just before you said that I was actually relieved when it turned out that we couldn't go. We got the news that it was categorically a no, you can't go. That's it, because it meant that we could kind of get on with our trip down in Lisbon.
Yeah, but that news didn't well. It did, but like there was. No, I'm not going to say anything else.
Brian, get it all out there. Come on, tell us how you feel.
No, it was just a crap few days. Like I didn't want to be. I actually didn't want to be on Mizzen.
No,
like I didn't want to be anywhere.
Yeah, it was strange.
That's where you wanted to be.
Yeah. But the frustrating thing is, we're there.
It's actually like it's proper gutting. Like,
yeah, we were there 4 days before, which kind of makes it a little bit worse, which is frustrating. Added frustration. But as I say, let's move on from that, right? Because it was something I will admit that I suppose negatively impacted the start.
In fairness, though, a brilliant find by Steve.
Fantastic,
Steve. He deserves that because he's done Mizzen for years and years, and he's
Steve. I be chatting to Steve, like, and Steve is absolutely mental, right? Steve will just be like, "Do you know what, John? I'm going to go to Inishboffin."
Yeah, it was funny because at the Arctic Warbler, I asked him, and I was kind of nearly not laughing, but like thinking, like, well, look, why would you go away from County Cork, like, which is
well, it paid off
for Yanks, like, it's the best place for Yanks. I was like, why are you going to Inishboffin? And he said something along the lines of, wait and see.
Yeah,
or we'll see at the end of the autumn, or something like that. Like,
that's that fabled Scottish wisdom coming through there, isn't it? You know?
Brian, I've been telling you about islands off the west coast for years, and you just haven't listened to me. You've been laughing in my face.
I have, yeah.
So as I say, we'll not begrudge Steve. In fact, I couldn't be happy.
Couldn't
I'm
happen.
so delighted he found it. Certainly no poo-pooing from us, Steve.
No.
We're delighted for you. But you ruined the first few days of our trip. We're sorry. But
You've ruined my year. No.
You finding the bird caused Brian to ruin the first few days of our trip. But as I say, it was really a relief for me, and I'm sure the other lads too, when we knew we weren't getting the bird. That was it.
But it'd also make you wonder how lads can get out of twitching, like.
That's for another episode. That's for another episode.
But you'd wonder, like if something like a Tennessee turned up next year, and if you decide, right, I'm not twitching from now on, like I just don't get it. But sure, anyway,
that'll be for the rehab episode.
Yeah, you're in the middle, Brian. You're in the middle of your addiction now. Nothing that makes sense to you.
So we decided to get back to Les Mis, folks. We had made the trip down. We were there for the first 2 days. We had flogged the headland and really found nothing particularly exciting apart from a flyover Lapland bunting that we couldn't really all connect with anyway. It was
yellowbirds.
No, I don't think I found the first yellowbird. Did I not know?
Yeah, they were late. Yeah, they were late in the week.
Oh,
was it later in the week? Yeah.
Oh, it was. Yeah.
After the news, after we, as I said, we decided no Tennessee, it's gone. That's it. We started bird kind of more seriously and more committedly again, and we were rewarded. You know, we were hitting the headlands. We were starting to see a few MiGs drop in. You know, and do you want to continue on from there, Brian or Peter?
Brian.
What MiGs were dropping in, John?
What did Dan find?
True. Apart from the Blackpool Warbler, I suppose.
Yeah, so there was actually the next day we were kind of, it was a little bit of a I suppose consolation prize in that Dan Ballard found a Blackpool Warbler and a barred warbler in what's known as Vireo Valley, which is a kind of small area on the the west side of Mizzen Head. And we actually, that's the bird that you can see that we're referencing in the video there. So that's actually quite interesting because Peter had kind of harangued us into filming a little bit of B-roll, as he calls it, and not just him, everybody calls it, that's what it's supposed to be called. But Peter pressured us into filming a little bit of a segment for the vlog because, as I say, we were a bit down at this point. We wanted to just get on and find something, hopefully, and see some birds. Peter stayed true to the cause and said, right, you come down here and tell me about your day. And then you see my genuine reaction when I'm roaring, Peter, get into the fucking car. But that is not staged or contrived in any way, folks. We got the phone call and Peter was waiting to do a little bit of a segment for the show first, but I think it turned out better because, as you saw, Peter jumped in and the madness kind of just ensued.
Yeah.
So
that was some buzz, like.
Yeah. Go.
I think I don't think I've ever been that close to a mega being found.
Yeah.
Like you probably have, Peter and Cape, but I don't think
Peter's found the mega.
No, but like.
No, I'll tell you just a little side story. Another Les Mis story just a couple of years ago. Myself and Jared went down. The weather looked good with westerly winds, and it wasn't a place I'd done regularly, but we headed down to Tor Pier, was the first place we went on Mizzen. And after about an hour, we found a red-eyed vireo, literally fresh in. It must have been only in like the previous hour or two. So we were delighted. We'd driven to Cork to find the rare American bird, and literally within an hour of being there, we found one. So it was like winning the jackpot. So a couple of the East Cork lads were there. I think Harry Hussey and Paul Moore and Dennis were on the headland. So, and Peter Wolstenholme, and we called them anyway, and they came up to see it. Harry and that was a little bit grumbly, you might say, because I suppose that the lads had come down from the East Coast and tipped them to the rare bird. So me and Jerry were delighted. We went off down for tea and scones down at the lighthouse, delighted with ourselves, and we had a now celebratory cup of tea and a jam scone, and then as soon as we left the lighthouse,
Peter, I guarantee you Murray didn't have a cup of tea. That lad loves his comfort. That was a cinnamon latte with a donut and a muffin and lashings of milk and tea and all that stuff.
Yeah, when we finished drinking our lashings of tea, we just left the lighthouse, but there was no coverage inside the lighthouse. As soon as we went outside, Jer's phone went absolutely mental. He had about 20 or 30 missed calls and messages, and we were like, what's going on? And he looks at the screen and he says, fucking don't believe it, he said, Scarlet Tanager. I says, where? He says, about 200 yards away up the road. So we jumped into the car and drove down, and Harry, who'd been bemoaning the fact that we found red-eyed vireo a few minutes ago, just found a Scarlet Tanager up in the garden. So on our way to the coffee shop, we'd driven past the Scarlet Tanager in a bush beside the car.
But that garden had been done 4 times that day.
Yeah.
I'd say if Murray had a caught it in the corner of his eye, he'd have still drove on to get the cheesecake. He's that no, but that, folks, for those of you that don't know, that's Harry Hussey off the Fillmore Corner podcast fame.
Yeah.
Great guy, Harry.
I'm only kind of half joking. Like the lads, they're great lads. In fairness, they don't actually begrudge anyone finding birds down in Cork. In fairness to them, but it was Harry was stoned looking. I remember seeing him at the side of the road, and Philadelphia View. Myself and Jer, or not Philadelphia View.
what, Peter? There.
That's for the bloopers.
Scarlet Tanager. Scarlet Tanager.
Scarlet Tanager. They look similar, actually. They've got that kind of a greeny, yellowy American vibe thing going on. But we were standing there looking into the bushes, and eventually the Scarlet Tanager appeared on. It gave crippling views, as we say.
Fantastic. I believe Brian got that one as well, didn't you? You got that bird.
I saw that the next morning.
Peter, you all right? Did you fall?
Yeah, no. Oh, no, good, all good, yeah.
Okay. I actually dipped that bird. I was raging at it.
He just wants the world to open up and swallow after that little blooper.
Yeah, no, I thought we'd moved on to the bloopers. That's why I mentioned that.
So anyway, you were saying there, Dan found that we're back to Dan finding Blackpoll Warbler, folks. At some point, we'll tell a story in a straight line this evening. So we will. So as you saw in the clip, that's how.
Is it worth mentioning what Dan found today?
No, we can't go for that either. I don't want to be depressed. All right, not allowed to know, folks. Trust us; it's better for your mental health. Tell the story of the Blackpool Warbler, will you? For fuck's sake!
All right, okay.
This time, try and just finish the story.
Right. Okay. So,
go.
News of a lease sand came through from Harbour View Beach. Where was that near? Court McSherry or something? Or?
Yes. Yeah.
Was it? Yeah, it was up, so it was up that kind of way.
Yeah.
So Peter, you had went off on one of your wanders. You were nowhere to be seen. And me, John, Jair, Paul Moore and Dennis O'Sullivan, we were all kind of standing at the... Dennis had heard something, probably an acro, in the... just up from the main garden. And so we were kind of all just standing around and looking, and I got the notification off Bird Guides that there was a lease sand. So that was a tick for you, and I wouldn't have minded seeing one, neither would Jair. So we kind of planned to go for that, and Paul and Dennis had just left, and we had all sat into the car. And I think you had rang Peter or something to tell him to be out on the road, that we'll collect you, that there's a lease sand, because it would have been a tick for you as well, Peter.
That's right, yeah.
So we had literally just sat into the car, and then I got a phone call from Dan. So, like, straight away, you'd know something's found, but I was expecting maybe, like, something, I don't know, an Orby fly or something. And he just rang, and he was in an absolute panic. Like Dan is, like, one of the most laid-back lads you'll ever meet, and I've never heard him in such a panic. And he was just like, Brian, I have a yank. And then he started to break up, and I couldn't hear where it was even. So then we went fucking bombing it down to Peter. And Peter was arms around getting his B-roll. And he wouldn't get into the car. And eventually he got into the car, and he realised there was something up in Three Castles, because I got through to Dan again and then got broke up again. So finally, the third time, the phone call is videoed. And it was an unbelievable buzz, because we didn't really know what we were going to see, because Dan had only kind of seen it briefly. And Three Castles I've only ever been in once, because it's completely out of bounds. And so it was kind of like, and I'd actually never been in Vireo Valley. So that was like I've been down in Mizzen every year for the last 5, for at least a week. And I'd never been in Vireo Valley. So it was great to get up there just to see, like, because that used to be the best spot on the headland before the access kind of got done because of, well, anyway. Yeah, so, what?
Irresponsible Twitchers.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And so, like, what do I say now? Like, do I go on about it, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Right, okay.
so folks, so I'll jump in here, the natural
Yeah.
storyteller that I am. So we're in the car anyway. Brian finally gets through to Dan. Dan gets a little bit of coverage, and we hear we hear Dan say the words, "Look, I'm barely sure it's a mega yank," and you can hear us all just go. And it was that cringeworthy and that embarrassing in real life, folks. Trust me, that is not contrived either. But we get over there, and on the way, Dan is telling Brian that because of these issues with access, he's only allowed to have one person with him at a time. It's just the landowner's wishes, okay? So obviously you want to respect the landowner's wishes so that you don't cost Dan access to the land, okay? But Dan was saying, okay, so park responsibly on the road. You saw that. And then he was saying to Brian, just you come up, we'll clinch the ID, we'll get a good look at the bird, and then I'll see about taking the lads up one at a time or something along those lines. So we pull in, and Brian is like, okay, well, I try and get a couple of shots of the bird, and you hear me saying, no, see the bird, I'm fucking back immediately. Because if I mess it over you, you're dead, essentially. And the lads kind of echoed my sentiments as well. But Brian ran, and you know what? He's like a whippet, okay? He's a thin guy.
No, I ran the wrong way.
Brian, you must have, no exaggeration, you must have ran 3 kilometers to get to where Dan was.
Yeah.
It was a kilometer journey.
With a scope, bins, a bag.
Yeah. It was a kilometer journey, but you ran 3 kilometers.
Yeah.
And by the time you got there, it was hilarious because
I was absolutely knackered.
Peter just goes to me, God love me, he's wrecked. And the next thing I look, you're sitting on the ground. You can't even stand up.
It was kind of like a little ledge, and I was like, oh, fuck this, I can't.
Yeah.
My legs were like jelly.
So what happened at that point? At this stage, folks, myself, Jer, Peter and Dennis and Paul were about possibly 800 yards away on a road.
Probably about that, yeah.
On the other side of the valley, kind of looking with our scopes directly across. We have a relatively okay view of Dan and Brian, and it transpired we actually could see the bird from that distance as well, but not well. We didn't get great views from there at all. So what happened when you got there, Brian?
I got there and Dan couldn't see, because I'd never been in Vireo Valley before, so I didn't know how to get up to it. So I ended up going the completely wrong way, up over like the kind of mountain, and like down through all the bracken and all that. And
yeah,
Dan couldn't understand where I was. Like, he couldn't understand how it was taking me so long, like, because he couldn't even see me, like, looking down through the field.
It's just as well you're so fit, Brian.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I come over the hill, panting like a madman, and then Dan could finally see me. So then me and him then went running up again, up to where he had the bird. And I was thinking, oh, Jesus Christ, I'll be fucking waiting ages here now for a view. And literally, almost immediately, I just got the flash of yellow, and I saw it, but again, briefly. And it was obviously going to be a yank. And then I was just getting like little like flicks of it and that, and I couldn't get a proper view of it. And my head was going mad, like thinking what it could have been. And eventually then it did sit out, and I did go for 1 or 2 shots, but I just, because like I wouldn't have been able to clinch it on the bins because it was actually quite distant. So I zoomed in, and I actually watched it on the camera because I could get a much closer view on the full zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fairly certain it was going to be a black-polled warbler. And Dan agreed when he looked at the shot. So we watched it maybe for about 5 minutes, and then headed back down to the lads. Saw it well maybe for about a minute in total. And in fairness, like, for as Yanks go, like, it was kind of obliging, you know. So
fantastically.
But it showed fantastically after then. When
you came back down, and Dan went with the landowner to see if we could head up, and he was basically saying, look, can I take one of them up at a time? And the landowner graciously said, no, just take the lads up, you're grand. Just make sure you're practicing your social distance and all, which we were. So we all trudged up the hill and down the valley, back up the valley. And when we got there, the bird was, I would say, it was giving itself up. I got fantastic.
I've never seen a yank that well, I don't think.
Yeah, it was absolutely stunning. A beautiful, beautiful bird. And actually, it transpired that we got chatting to Dan. He had a barred warbler earlier that morning in pretty much the same location. So, you know, great day for him.
He's just a rarity magnet. Like,
he's found
the stuff he's found over the years is fucking ridiculous. Like,
you can tell him now what he found today. Tell him now what he found today.
He found a hermit thrush today, so that was a third for Ireland.
Yeah,
and it's again absolutely gutting.
Yeah, we can go. But we'll not worry about that.
No, hermit thrush will come again.
We were absolutely chuffed. We all got good views of the board. Brian got fantastic scope footage. I got fantastic shots. And we were happy. We were very, very happy.
I got fantastic B-roll.
Peter, nobody's doubting that. I think we should change your name to Peter Spielberg. I think that's what it should be. But yeah, we kind of walked back up. We sat back and we took it all in for a minute, folks. It was a tick for everybody in our group except Jer, who had got one before, but he got horrible views. So it was almost like a tick for him as well. We went back to the car, we sat down and we actually said, look, we're not going to top that today, what he is want to do. And we decided to make the trip for the Leith Sandpiper. Now, the thing about Cork, folks, is for those of you who aren't familiar with it, you could be in Cork, drive for 3 hours and still be in Cork. It is huge, okay? So we sat out, we set off on about an hour and a half to a 2 hour journey to Cork McSherry to see the Leith Sandpiper. And I suppose naive optimists that we were, it worked out okay for us, we can't complain, but we didn't give ourselves the best opportunity to do so, because we arrived on site at Cork McSherry with about maybe half an hour to 40 minutes of light left, folks. Would you say that was about that?
Yeah, about half an hour.
Yeah. So Jer went left and the three of us went right. We decided to walk down the beach. Tell the story, Peter, go.
So there's been a lad ringing there, bird ringing for the previous few weeks, ringing waiters at night time, and James O'Neill, isn't it? And he had a fair bit of luck. He'd ringed a few rare waiters, so we knew where the Leith Sandpiper was coming in to roost. And as we were crossing a bit of a salt marsh, it was getting darker and darker, and I thought, oh my God, we're not going to see this. This just isn't going to work out. It was getting darker, and I just saw the small waiter flying in from some pools on the left, and I just kind of kept my eye on it, and it landed in a small pool with some Dunlin and there was a little stint there as well. And as soon as I copped eyes on it, I knew it was the Leith Sand, and because there'd been good photos taken of it, so I knew exactly what it looked like. So I let it roar. I think, Brian, you were close to me, weren't you?
Yeah, I kind of.
Brian was near me, and Brian lifted the bins. Oh, yeah. And literally, Brian lifted the bins for like about 1 second. And John was about...
It was stupid because, like, I looked with the bins and I was like, oh, well, that's it. Like,
yeah.
And then John was coming running over with the scope. You had seen it, like, from further down.
You guys imagine the harbour is kind of here like this. The lads went to the left and were walking down one side. I was kind of going to the right on the other side. And basically, I had just set up, and I found the only waders in it. I got onto a little stint, found another small, which is a small bird or something, or twitchers and birders sometimes call a small wader. I get onto it, and it's chocolate brown at the back, and I'm like this to the lads actually, roaring.
Look at that food over there.
John's in trouble, quick. So basically it was one of those kind of parallel innovation moments, like, but Peter had seen it pretty much the same time that I had. Sorry, Peter and Brian, both of you had seen it pretty much the same time.
Yeah.
And
I hadn't taken the eye off it. Brian just lifted the bins and said, "Oh yeah, that's it." I was looking at it for about maybe.
It was stupid because I knew, because I don't know why I didn't ring the scope, because I thought we were going to literally.
I think I had your scope.
I thought if we were going to see it, we'd be like looking down on it in a tiny little pool, like right in front of us.
No, yeah. I actually had your scope. It wasn't my scope. I had your scope.
Was that my scope? Was it?
Yeah. Because I remember carrying it, thinking, this is incredibly feminine. No, I remember. No, I did actually, because I couldn't use the, you know, that you have the handle pointed up.
Oh yeah.
I remember struggling with it.
Well, that's why I didn't.
That one. So it was a two yank.
So when Peter says, "Oh, or you said something like that's it" or something, I literally did. Oh yeah, happy days. And then I was waiting for John to come over with the scope, that was all I saw of it. Like,
You never
And I
know.
was never seen, and it just, I've never seen again as we kind of.
I'm glad it wasn't a bloody tick for me.
For crippling views, like it was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we
Well,
all.
you two both saw quite well. But
Yeah, I had it in the scope for a good minute, and then probably it was I had it in the scope for a good minute, and then I started to wave. Sorry, that's a wee bit selfish, lads. I probably should have waved
a
quick.
whole minute.
Yeah, I did a quick feed sketch, you know.
John, it was only there for the minute because I saw it flying in.
Oh yeah, oh really? Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's fantastic.
And you kept on it, Peter, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had it for about 40 seconds, I'd say. And then I looked over at John waving.
Yeah, that was it. So that was great, folks.
And then you just waved back.
So it was a 2-yank day.
I'm actually really glad that wasn't a tick for me, because I would have made an absolute hames of that.
Klusky effect, shall we say.
Yeah.
2-yank day, folks. We were very, very happy. We were exhausted men, so much so that I had to sleep in the car and get Jared to drive us home. It was crazy. It was a long, long day for us.
I think that's kind of when I decided to twitch off, wasn't it?
Pretty much. Now, to be fair, you had your mind made up before that, but
I know, but it was just dragging at that stage.
It was sort of the nail in the coffin at that. You know. So the next day started pretty well for you, Peter. You had Lesser Whitethroat, quite close to the house.
Yeah, down in Barley Cove, I went for a walk, and it was pre-fused, but it was a Lesser Whitethroat, and it didn't show again for the rest of the day. But then I think we decided to go to, was it Lissa Griffin? We tramped through then. We had Brian's in the market for a new camera, so I loaned him my Canon, and we went down, had a bit of crack down on the.
You actually never sent me the picture of the jack snipe.
Yeah, no, I've been to Brian. It was rubbish.
No, you didn't, did you?
That's because it looked so terrible in comparison to my pin.
Did you actually get rid of it?
Yeah,
absolutely. Brian, I gave you my camera for 5 minutes. There was about 600 images on it, and they were all rubbish.
There was one good one of the jack snipe in flight.
Did you expect me to spend the whole day looking through the 500 or 600 images for one decent image?
It's still a photographic tick for me, so...
Can you count it if you delete it?
No, take it off your life list. Take it off your life list.
Yeah.
That's a shambles. I still have the back of the camera shot.
Sorry, not sorry.
Put it in your records, man. It was a good shot.
It's a good thing there wasn't a Wilson's and that. I'm deleting this.
It wasn't the best shot even of the day, Brian. I think you should get over it. You're making a wee bit too much.
Yeah, in fairness, you showed Peter, you showed John's shot of the jack snipe. The focus one.
I took a fantastic watercolor image of a jack snipe in flight there, so I was chuffed with that. So basically, folks, what we did was we basically headed down, mature adults that we are, and decided to have a competition to see who could take the best photograph of a jack snipe. Yeah, he did, to be fair. Yeah. And then we kind of split up to see what we could find. And I was delighted because I found my first ever self-found yellow-browed warbler, which you can see in the clip at the start as well. I'd say I've seen upwards of maybe 10 or 12 of them in my life. But for as a find stick, it was pretty cool. I was delighted because there had been none on the headland. Pretty much that.
No, that was one of the first. I think there was one or two maybe the week before.
Was there? Okay.
But not.
It was an early one,
Nearly
it was
a week.
early.
Probably hadn't been one. Yeah.
So I was chuffed.
It was the start of the main arrival, because after that, then I think a good few birds started to appear on the west coast of Ireland.
Yeah, I think we had 5 or 6 of them after that. Yeah, so it was good. It was good. I was chuffed with that. And then we spent the next couple of days sort of birding away and trying our best to throw something up. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. That was really the end of the excitement. We had a bit of crack packing up. I believe Peter forgot almost every item that he took with him. We had to take home his wash bag. We had to take home his glasses. At one point, we thought he had lost his binoculars during the trip. It took us about 2 hours to pack Peter up, and then we had to pack the rest of us up. But birding wise, beyond that, it really kind of dropped off, and it was quiet. And we weren't too upset to head home on the Friday. So the trip ended on that note. We all lived happily ever after. There were no cowboys. There were no Indians. There was no drama. Remember to like, share, and subscribe as ever, folks. We've been Two in the Hand. You've been great. Let the record show we took the blow and we did it our way. Handled with finesse and delicacy.
We were halfway there when the rain came down on the DIA. She asked me up to a flat downtown on a fine summer day. Hey, shoot friend, tell me what would you do? Because the hair was black and the eyes were blue. So I took her and I gave her a 12. And I lost my heart to a Galway girl. Yippee!